Oh, hi.
Hey, Casey, how are you?
I'm doing great. Oh, you wanted me to start? Oh, I'm sorry. Was I leading this? I'm totally ready. I'm ready to go.
Yeah, awesome,
Are we ready?
awesome, awesome. Well, hey, we're here with Casey Webb. I am Jeff Dudan, and we are on the Homefront. Welcome, sir. So excited to be on with you today.
Thank you, Jeff. I appreciate it. And we just so happen to both be in the Carolinas, which I don't live in, but I do visit often. So that was a nice surprise, right? As far as surprises go.
Yeah, absolutely. Down in Wilmington, we're in Lake Norman area, north of Charlotte here. So, what have you been up to down there this week?
So I took a road trip with my dog, landed in Cape Charles, Virginia, camped out over there on the Chesapeake, which is pretty incredible. And then I
Nice.
came in day before yesterday. It's a buddy's birthday party. He hired the Rebirth Brass Band from New Orleans, Crawfish Boil, at this dive bar called the Greensville Yacht Club, which is formerly the Doublener, which is right near the Greensville Amphitheater or theater that's over there. So it was a lot of fun. We had a good time yesterday, and it's really cold and dark and rainy in the Northeast in New Jersey, where I live and where I'm from.
Yeah.
And so it was time to take a little road trip. Last year, I traveled a bunch: Thailand, Costa Rica, Ireland. New Orleans for Jazz Fest, which I'm going to next week for fun. And I usually write that stuff off because it's travel.
That's right.
It's part of business. It's part of doing business. But this year I hadn't gone anywhere. I was just kind of embracing the winter in New Jersey. And I'm sorry I did that because it was January was the longest 6 months of my life. So,
well, hey, Casey. Tell us a little bit about growing up in New Jersey and the things that you did.
So I'm originally from New Jersey. Parents are both New Yorkers that made their way in the late 60s to a little town called Little Silver, where the train conductor affectionately called it as small change. And a lot of blue collar in that town, mixed, I guess. Dad commuted to the city. So my mom was a stay-at-home mom, which is pretty great. I got to spend a lot of time with my mom in the kitchen. Yeah, very humble beginnings, for me. Sports was a big part of my life later in life. I guess through high school and into college. I played football. I wrestled in high school and played football in high school and college. That led me to play, or high school led me to play football in college for a brief stint. And it was, I realized then, like, I did real well. I walked away with no injuries. I had the body for a football player, just not the height. So I went D3. I thought I was going D1. And then, like most things, sometimes it's time to hang up your helmet and leave it on the field. So I did. And that's actually when I started acting. Or I was always acting out, but I put some energy into actually performance. And I started doing theater at 18. But before that, we're living in a small town, like parents know each other, and a friend of the family had a pizza place. So I started washing dishes at this pizza place. So there's like this parallel world of acting in restaurants that would lead up to why we're here, talking probably about man versus food.
So what position did you play in football?
I was a defensive tackle. Well, they tried me on both sides, and I just wasn't. I was more, and this is such as life. You find out later in life. I was more reactionary, or reactive. So defense is where I excelled, and I was about going as a freshman. I was like 230, 240 at 5'9", just a big head, big shoulders, big hands. It's my Italian Irish heritage. I think to that, my grandfather. So. I'd put you right over the ball, right? Yeah, I was nose guard. I was a nose guard. That's what I'd have done with you. Yeah, and I was by my senior year, I really got into running. Believe it or not, my senior year, and when we went to football camp every year at Penn State from Jersey, and it was really probably still is popular camp for kids, and that really got us ready. These days, kids are playing whatever sport all year long, which is incredible. We would have been a different team if we played all year long, like most kids are doing with be it baseball, soccer, basketball, and what have you. But I dropped like 30 pounds, like over the course of like junior to senior year, and then going to senior year, they had to change the defense. So I was a D tackle. I became nose guard fast and just popped out of my stance. And coach called me Pop. Actually, that was my nickname. and he would scream it from across the field. And he was like, he had a titanium hip, and he walked like he had one too. And he would scream it. You know, it's amazing. He's like the coach you would see, you know, a character on a television show or movie, you know,
like a pirate.
Complete. And we were the Buccaneers, believe it or not. We were the Bucks. So go Bucks.
So you were the Buccaneers, and your coach had a metal leg, basically.
Total pirate without the parrot. He was pirate without the parrot. And my buddies to this day, it's like anytime there's anything, because a lot of these guys that I grew up with, now their kids are going to the opposing schools that we definitely were up against, or I still hate, actually. And their kids are going to those schools. And anytime I finish off, a text, it's always go Bucks, go Bucks, go Bucks, hashtag go Bucks. So I haven't forgotten, and I will never forget.
Yeah. Anything you learned as an athlete that you still take with you to this day into business? Entertainment's tough. You're always getting knocked in the mouth. You got to go do auditions. It's kind of thankless. And football, man, like you make a mistake, you're out.
I'm gonna go jump off a bridge right now. No, it's all of it. Truthfully, because I had my older brother was just a tough son. Is still a tough son of a bitch, and he kind of paved the way for me. My grandfather was, my uncles, my dad, just a sweetheart of a man, wasn't an athlete, but he was really wise. Yeah. And so like I had this great masculine energy from my uncles and my brother, specifically because it was home with me. And then my grandfather, this looming presence of my grandfather. And then there's my dad who he would sit me down. And when I was a junior in high school, when I started playing a lot more, I actually made varsity as a sophomore. You have to play freshman, and then unless you're like a really good you catch real well. So as a defensive player, I made varsity as a sophomore. He would sit me down and visualize my day and visualize the game every Saturday he would do that. And my dad grew up in the Bronx, poor Irish guy from the Bronx, but he's part of this program that brought him to Massachusetts in the summer. So he had some worldly vision, and he growing up in the 60s and 70s, he found as a Catholic, he grew up Catholic, but he had these life philosophies that he passed down to me and my brother, and he would have me visualize, and quite that changed the game for me, because I already saw what I was doing, and like everything was in slow motion, but I was at full speed. And that's how I excelled, really. And I've taken that with me wherever I go, especially with, any sort of performance. I got knocked around a long time, but that's just part of the business. Man versus Food, for instance, was like what people most know me for. I didn't get that till I was 40, and that was 2017. Right. So I had worked as a PA for years while bartending, working in restaurants, pursuing acting. I was trying to do all these things. And the sports element, that's where it came to a point when I was in college. I was like, I'm done using my noggin to knock people over. I'm good at it. That's great. And I'm not going to be a pro. I'm just a small guy. Right. So I hung it up, and that's when I really started pursuing, because it was always a physical and emotional release. We had some problems as kids. Yeah. Parents got divorced, yada, yada, yada. But I was able to use sports to kind of relieve that tension, that childhood angst, or even just the testosterone, and, It was. I just jumped into another thing, and that was. It was acting, theater. It started with theater.
So when you jumped into that, were you doing scripted productions or improv? What was your first opportunity?
So I came back came back home to New Jersey. I was in Western Pennsylvania playing football, which is school called Wilkes. It was Wilkes College then. It's Wilkes University. It's in the Scranton, near Scranton, at the Susquehanna River, and it's only football and beer, basically football, beer, and girls, which is great. I just realized that I want to do a little bit more.
Wait a minute.
No. Are you leaving? Wait, are you taking a show on the road?
That sounds good.
Yeah, it was great, at the time, but it was just like I just had a change of heart. And I wrote this really long letter to my father and my brother and told them that I was done. I drafted this letter on legal tender, letterhead, whatever, legal pad, and it just wrote, telling them that I was done playing football. And that was one of the hardest, probably the first hardest decision I've had to make, because of the legacy my brother had, and he's a bit of a hero of mine, as well as my father. So to tell them that I was quitting something, because my heart just wasn't in anymore, and I couldn't just do it anymore because of them, for the sake of them. And So that was the toughest part. So I got back to Jersey, and a really close friend of me, my 3 closest friends were pursuing acting in some capacity. One was going to Conservatory, American Academy of Dramatic Arts. The other one was getting his undergrad at UVM, University of Vermont, but he was minoring in theater. He later went on to go to New School Actor Studio under James Lipton at the New School. And I auditioned with him to get in, and he got in. So I got to audition in front of James Lipton, which is a pretty big deal for a theater actor or an actor in general. And I didn't have my undergrad, so I was studying with the teachers that taught privately, but not at the university level at the university. Anyway, there's a lot of ways there, and I just took my way, So and my buddy at home was at community college. It was when he encouraged me to audition for this play at the community college in the area where I grew up. It's Brookdale Community College, and it's like the 2-year school for Rutgers, Monmouth University, a bunch of other schools. And Seton Hall, all these Jersey schools. It's a 2-year school for that. So I auditioned for the first time, cold read. Basically, you take a piece of paper. This is actually an audition I have to do later, but and you read it cold, and you perform it on a stage in front of your peers that are auditioning for maybe the same role. And I failed. It was the hardest thing.
So wait, how much time do they give you when they hand the piece of paper to you? Do you read it from the paper, or do you have to memorize it real quick and then do it?
It's a little bit of both. You gotta, it's part owning.
Like, here, what can you do with this? Yeah, exactly. Here, what can you do with this?
Exactly. It's told for a reason, because it's not hot enough for you to have spent time with it or put any emotion behind it. So it put me in a position where I had to just rely on just instinct and gut, and that led to me not getting any roles in that play. But I did step into the next class that semester, which was all improv, and then that changed my life as far as I was concerned, because then I realized, like, this is what I want to do. This is my next challenge. This is what I want to do for the rest of my life. I never.
How much of improv is like systematized? Because I'm fascinated by the concept of it, and all I watch is comedy, man. That's it. Yeah. And so,
is that why I'm here?
If you're in Second City, or if you watch like the Farley documentary, that kind of stuff, how much training, is there, is there just systems and processes that you use that help get you to the next joke, to the next line, to carry it forward? I imagine there is, but to me, it doesn't. It would be hard for me to make up how that process works. I'd be interested to hear you talk about it.
It's a lot of play. And it's all listening. So it's listening and reacting and upping the ante. And there's you'll probably hear it, maybe you've heard it. There's this yes and element, because as soon as you say no to something, you cut off all conversation. So I've never, leading into Man vs. Food, I never hosted a TV show, a show on TV, but I've hosted live stuff, and with improv experience, and that's just practice, like how to get to Carnegie Hall, practice, right?
Yeah.
So with interviews, it was the same thing. I use these tools that I learned as a young person who failed on a cold read on a stage, how to listen. You're actively listening, because if you're thinking about the next thing you're going to say while you're performing, of course there's a bit of that, but you have to be listening to what's being said to you in order to react to that and take from that, mine from that, and then use it. And to up the ante or create another story, or take us along the road. Like, you're both walking this path, you and your other characters could be 2, 3, 4, 5 of the people that you're improvising within a group. And just to give you an idea, like with Man vs. Food, I'm talking to strangers about food. I know what I need to say. I know what I want them to say. I have to lead them there to say it. So we're mining for sound bites. To give you an idea of what I was doing when I was a young person was basically active listening. And my opinion, the greatest gift you can give anyone is your full attention. I'm listening to you. I'm hearing what you're saying. I'm not thinking about the next thing I'm going to say. Though I'm excited and I want to add to what you're saying, I need to take a deep breath and actually absorb what you're saying, and then let that information wash over me, and then proceed and have that dialogue, So it's really about listening and being open to play and not saying no. It's like, yes, end your life, and it's funny because that happened to me. And there was a point in my life where I was like, I hate bartending, but I love acting. I was living in Brooklyn, and I just broken up with a girlfriend for many years, and I was in a weird place. And I was like, wait a second, I'm the same person that's bartending, that's acting. And what it was affecting me in the room. Cause we used to, believe it or not, we used to go into a studio or an office space and audition. We don't do that anymore. It's now like this, right? It's all, which I miss. So it was affecting my work because I was like in my head about this hating, I was like this duality in life. Something snapped. It's like, I'm the same person behind the bar having these conversations with these folks and being entertaining or whatever, trying to entertain, as I'm the same person that would walk into the room auditioning for this job that might help me pay my rent, or advance me in my career, or, so it was like this literal switch. And then that's what led me to a great deal of success, because I got out of my own way. I was listening to my gut, my heart, truthfully. And I didn't say no. I stopped saying no to myself. No, I don't have enough time. No, I can't do this. I was like, holy crap, this is affecting all of it. Like, not just the work, but my whole life. I was closing myself off by saying no. So with improv, you're just saying yes, you're advancing the thing. So when I say yes, end your life, that's what I'm actually doing that. That's what got me down here. I was like, I got to drive. Like, I could have said no a million times and never drove down to Wilmington, but I did, because I knew the juice would be worth the squeeze. The 9 hours in the car would be worth all of it. And it was, of course. I'm like on the Chesapeake cooking steaks with my dog. It was amazing. Like, just because I said yes. If I said no, I'd be home in the cold, wondering what the hell was going on down here. This crawfish boil.
Yeah. Look, everybody needs an adventure in life, and the more you can have, the better your life is going to be.
Amen.
People, we end up right where we are in life based on the decisions that we make and the talk in our head that we listen to that put walls up around us. And I think just saying yes to, defaulting to yes is a powerful tool to get you where you want to go. And then I think, I had a similar and it's obviously smaller, but, with this podcast, I look back at the first ones that I did, and I was like, I could tell my body language. I was nervous, and I had scripted questions, and, and
were you like
then
this?
At the end of the day,
Were you like this?
Yeah, I think I was, what I realized was, if I'm smiling and the guest is smiling and we're having a good time, then that's about as good as you can get, because people can hear smiles. And if you're having fun and you're going, you might not get to everything you wanted to get to, but who cares?
It's okay.
Have a good time with it. And then, people seem to resonate with that. So you can't take yourself too seriously. Get out of your own way. Don't be fearful. And by the way, none of this is fatal.
No,
you don't get the part. Okay.
That's part of the job. I learned very early on, not to tell anyone that I had any audition for anything, because when you do, I was like, yeah, Mom, Dad, I got auditioned for this TV show. And then a week later, do you get it? No. And you would say that a lot, because there's a lot more times you're saying, no, I didn't get it, to the yes, I did get it. So that got cut off very quickly. And, with the yes thing, you say yes to it, you could decide to say no to it eventually once you've sussed it out, but don't rule it out until you know more about what that thing you're knowing. Not N-O-I-N-G, just if you start with yes, you're opening the thing up. When you start with no, there's no possibility. You just end it. It ends the conversation. So that's how I see it. I'm a very visual person and visual learner. So, in my mind's eye, and my father kind of lent that to me. He passed this little torch of just the visualization torch, let's call it, and that's helped me every day, when I get caught up here, because it's a motor, right? It's your gut and your heart is really, you have to listen to that little person inside. Some people call it the angels. Some people call it your inner child, whatever that voice be and whatever you call it, really trusting in that, because then you can put it up here and then put it to work, right? Because it's just a machine, that we get caught up in the cogs and the wheels of it all sometimes, and becoming quiet is the point. And that's what he was doing for me. So my father's he did pass a couple of years ago, but he meditated, for years, and he taught me, he brought me to a place that introduced transcendental meditation, and meditation is a big part of that too. Meditation is also prayer. It's a lot of things, and for a lot of different people, but becoming still helps, the uncertain waters, it helps you navigate through things a lot easier when you're calm, quiet, and you're available to receive,
I spent 4 hours last weekend with a business partner, and he brought up this, and it's time we hadn't really spent together out of the office. It was on a weekend. We just went and sat around his pool on the lake and might have had a couple of cocktails, but sure. He's in this training. He said, I'm learning to sit in awareness. And he described it as, I'm in this situation and something's going not well and I'm tending to get upset about it. But if I just sit in awareness and say, all right, what is this situation? What is the universe trying to tell me with this situation? Where are my opportunities to learn? I can take it as a slight. I can take it as a problem or a mistake. But, in reality, if I just sit in awareness and I get objective, I get extrospective, I get outside myself and I look at this objectively, what am I learning here? And I tell you what, man, I've found that to be a powerful little 3 words. Just when everything's spinning, I got everything going on, just sit in awareness for a minute. And I have worked on meditating, but man, it's hard.
It's work. It's not easy and it never will be easy. It's just one of those things where you have to make time and carve out time to become still, because as soon as you hit the ground in the morning, it's like, things are moving. So it's really the time when you wake up. I have a thing like get up. It doesn't always happen, but when you wake up, get up, make your bed and then start your day, because you'll never get into a made bed faster than you would in an unmade bed. If your bed's unmade, you're going to crawl back into bed. If your bed is made, and then, my dog is often in there. So I'm like, get out so I can make the bed so we can start the day, But yeah, when you're in stillness, when you're quiet and you're in that awareness that you speak of, you're able to receive things. You're able to see things without judgment. There's like walking meditations is very similar to this. Is you're just taking a walk. You're not judging anything. You're not calling out. You're not speaking. You're just receiving the color, the light. You're just letting it wash over you. And the things that come up when that happens, it's like it's just clearer. Things are just clear. You're seeing more by not judging or like having them, like thinking about all your problems in that moment. When you're actively listening and being still and quiet, all this stuff washes over you, just especially in nature. I lived near Prospect Park in Brooklyn, in New York City. And to me, everything outside of your small apartment, in my case, is your backyard. And that was all of New York City. So I was able to retreat there often because I grew up in the suburbs. We camped my whole life as kids. I thought I was going to go outdoor mountain rescue, fire jumper, all these crazy things before I was led my way to acting. But I've always sought out nature because I know it's there for us, It's like, especially living in a city for most of my adult life, it's one of those things where it's telling you to become quiet and listen, so you can have your wits about you if there's, wild animals or like impending branches or what have you. It's like when you realize how lucky we are, or when you realize how lucky you are, there's so much to get, with very little giving. It's just like all these beautiful things, in nature gives us.
Hey, I'm sorry to hear about your dad. It sounds like he made a big impact in your life.
Yeah, thank you for saying so. I was lucky enough, as the story goes, we finished filming in Florida in the Keys, in Key West. This is like BC, before COVID, right? And I right after we were finished filming, coincidentally, South Beach Wine Food Festival was going off, and I wasn't working it, but it's all the pros from Food Network are doing demos, and it's a really great event, and it's right on the beach in South Beach. And I went just to go see some people that I knew, people in the industry, and just decompress and quite honestly digest, because I think I had to eat like a giant key lime pie or something the day before. And I got back to New Jersey, and we just moved. My dad, he sold his place. He moved into this winter rental, and he was looking to buy or maybe rent. I get sick, and that was like ground zero apparently for me for COVID. I got that then, I got sick, let's say. And long and the short, I get better. I have a trip planned to Costa Rica, and I go to Costa Rica, was it March 16th? And March 20th, the whole world shuts down. So I find myself in Costa Rica. I wound up staying for 3 months because there was nothing going on in New York City. It was just like, friends are like, stay, because it's hell here. My brother was taking care of my parents. Everyone was cool. So I stayed there. The network and the production company were figured out. I got a 10-episode gig called Best Places to Pig Out, and I had my microphone and my stuff there too, because I had to do some episodes of Man vs. Food, do the voiceover, because we do voiceover for the show. Yeah. So I was like, oh my God, I'm in freaking paradise, and then this is a long story about my dad. But after 3 months, it was like I was there with friends, and it was time to go. And it's like when paradise can become purgatory, because I started listening. My mind was just over. I had to get back to work. I had to do something, because I was almost felt guilty. Went back home, and we moved my dad into this beautiful building, and he just aged a lot. And I was like, I got to make a move here. So I was literally blowing up an air mattress in his place and putting it back, before he woke up, cooking. And so if we didn't have that time off, because we would have went right back into production, and I'm gone, it's like 10 days on, 10 days off, and more or less, and when we're in production. So I got to spend like over a year with my dad before he got sick.
Oh, that's great.
And then he passed. Never had COVID, but he wound up had a little bit of cancer, a lot of treatment. And he's just an old Irish guy. He just didn't that it's a tough thing to go through, that part of it, because you want it to work, but it doesn't seem to ever work, especially for older folks, that just their immune system is not as strong. But I had to spend the beauty of that. I wouldn't have had that time to spend with him if the world didn't shut down, quite honestly. So some people have had terrible experiences and some others not, and mine was pretty incredible. We fought like brothers, because we just did. And but I got to cook for him every day, multiple meals, and that was really special. And then since then, he wanted to be cremated, and awesome. He had taken care of all of it, and he was a volunteer fireman for many years in our town, and like whatever fund they paid into took care of all of it. Like everything was taken care of. Like my brother and I didn't have to do anything. And it was like, wow, this is, because that is a very stressful time, talking to friends that had similar experiences with their parents. And so I had these ashes, and my brother's like, all right, what do you take him? I'm like, he's not very sentimental, And I was like, all right, so I'm going to take him with me. I took him to Thailand. I took him to Costa Rica. I took him to New Orleans.
How many times did he get tested at the airport?
No, it's funny, because I had I didn't have the whole bag. I took enough for Thailand.
That's right.
I took enough for Costa Rica. I took enough for Jazz Fest in New Orleans. I took him to Ireland.
There's not little bits of him in blue vials across the airports of the world.
No, it was in like a plastic bag rolled up, and I just put it in my carry-on. I fly a lot, so truthfully, they're looking for bombs and lots of heroin, I guess. I don't know.
Look, they know who we are now. They know who you are. You're not
right. They're like, hey, you're the guy.
No, yeah, you're not on a list.
I hope not. Maybe. I mean, that's funny, because I meet a lot of TSA folks who are just great. They're like doing their job, and all of a sudden, like, oh wait, you're the guy. Yeah, hey, some of my greatest conversations were in airports, because it's like, oh wow, because you're all stuck in the same place. And to me, I found success later in life, or success found me, however you look at it. And people stop me in airport, and then like we're talking, and they're like looking at their watch, like we got to go. I'm like, oh, all right. Like they leave me before I leave them usually, I'm like, all right, I guess you got to go, it's just funny to me, because they are ones to say hi to me, but I'm the one who doesn't want them to leave, because oftentimes I'm like in my head, and I don't want to necessarily be there thinking about all the things I got to do, what I didn't do. I could have done this better. And then it's like, oh wait, like you're like these little, people that, I don't call them angels or whatever they are, they're just people that come into your life, and it's like, I want to make time for them, because kids watch the show, couples watch the show, older folks watch, just like families and people, there are all kinds of people watch the show. So I have all the time in the world, if you have time for me,
That is much appreciated, I'm sure. Yeah, I lost my dad in the beginning of COVID, so I couldn't go see him because it was right when everything shut down, and he was in bad health. And my older brother did get there and kind of get in right there at the end. Yeah. But the year before he passed, I had sold a business in 2019. So the year before he passed, I made it a point 4 times to fly to Chicago, take him out of town for 3 days. He's a guy, he'd never had a massage in his life. So we went up to Lake Geneva.
It's amazing.
Got him a haircut, got him a massage, went to the restaurant and just sat there and talked for like 2 or 3 days. Sometimes my brothers would show up or whoever, but like, I am so thankful I did that. Like I am, because I had moved away and, we hadn't been together very much for the previous 10 years. And I was just like, man, it's now or never. And I took the time to do it. And then sure enough, COVID came the next year and that was the end of it. And he didn't die from COVID, but it certainly made it more difficult to handle everything because it was like right in the beginning of it and everybody was really freaking out. And then, so he was cremated too, but my favorite joke, my dad was hilarious. Like he would appreciate, I wouldn't tell this joke if he didn't appreciate it, but he was just so funny and he was so nice and so kind and so funny, little soft. Like maybe your dad, you said about your dad, like he could have probably stood up for himself a little more. But so like I'll serve my kids' friends like this crispy chicken we get from the fresh market and it's great. And it's got this really thick breading on it. And I'll be like, do you guys, they're like, oh, this is great. And I'm like, well, it's my dad's recipe. But enjoy it because the urn's almost empty. And I'll be like,
oh my God.
But I don't know. That's just that he would have appreciated. That would have been his type of joke. But we
live in urn, don't we? We live in urn.
We live in an urn. And then I took his ashes up to Canada where he used to take me fishing as a boy and spread them a little bit in the lake. So yeah, amazing. I mean, it's I miss him. It's funny that connection we have with our father as young boys it's pretty cool.
Can I share something with you? I had a friend, I didn't see it yesterday, but I'm on this text feed with all my buddies where I say, hashtag go Bucks. And we lost another dad recently and yesterday actually, and big golfer, Irish guy, just a total character. But like I wrote this, I like woke up and I was reading what friends are writing and I'm just like, we had a long day yesterday, Crawfish Boil out in the sun. This band played. It was quite incredible. And we were definitely in our cups, as they say, right? And I was sitting there. I was just kind of like tearing up reading what my friends are writing because we're all at this age. Like, I don't have kids. I didn't get married. I haven't been married yet. Just parents divorced. I chose work and yada, yada, yada. But like, I have friends that have kids. I have a lot of friends that have kids. I don't have any, but I have a small dog I treat like my kid. He's in the corner over there. But if I could share this with you, it's just like, I don't know where it came from. And sometimes this stuff just kind of appears. It just kind of channels through you. I very much believe that things channel through you from somewhere, would be it, wherever. But a friend of mine had written something about heroes and legends. And like, there are heroes die, but legends, are here forever. And our friend's dad, Big Jim O'Brien, he was one of those guys. So like all our fathers were in their own right. But I write in my mind as I'm reading, I see our fathers, brothers, mentors that have passed as statues on pillars in some hall of remembrance. This way I can visit them. This way I can visit them when I need to. It really makes me proud to know you guys and the mighty men that raised us all to live in power until it's time to rest in peace. Love you, boys.
It's beautiful. That's awesome.
Yeah. I miss them too,
Yeah.
And it's I have conversations with him, like my funny little dog. He's the quirkiest little thing. He reminds me of my dad. 'Cause my dad loved him so much, that sort of thing. And when he was sick, I was working out through my workouts, and some of that stuff helps tremendously. I do a lot of like CrossFit style stuff, high impact yoga. Like I just I'm in the water as much as I can, and in the right season. But it was always like, when he was sick, it was like, do it for dad, do it for dad, do it for dad. So it's like, it got me out of my head and then back into my body. Yeah. And it was like, it's because some people, they kiss it up to God, athletes, they do it to God or whatever. It looks as appears they're giving God the credit, and I think there's something about that in performance. especially physical performance, where you're able to kind of detach, and it's bigger than all of us. And that's kind of, my relationship with the visualization part, sitting down and getting my mind right and bringing myself to that place. So I'm prepared to be present and be in the moment and do my job, because especially in performance or acting, and they just want you to show up and do your best. And that's, and I learned that, by the process of not getting the job, by not getting, I got so much more because I was able to correct and tweak and make changes to so I would get the job,
Yeah.
And just a quick crazy story. I used to have a beard and it was graying, and I was like, and some auditions, because I have a younger look. So
not that there's anything wrong with that.
No, not at all. I'm embracing it. I mean, look at this thing. It's like I got like a neck beard.
Happens to the best of us.
Totally. It's part of the process, but I still have a full head of red hair. Right. So I was like, for auditions, I was starting to color it. I was like, Jesus, I'm done doing this. Like, I don't, it's, I started doing that. I was like, I want to be as transparent as possible. So I shaved the beard for this cop show. It was Brooklyn 999, whatever, that great funny show. I didn't get that job, but I shaved the beard off, and I was like, oh, I got this new look. I look like my dad, but 30 years younger, mustache, fiery red hair. And I tell you the truth, I got every job after that. And it was 6 jobs in a row. And like a few of them were commercials. One of them was in Panama, the country. And then the last one was Man vs. Food. Well, I actually got Man vs. Food before I got the Panama commercial, that's a whole other story. Like, I lost my passport. While I was there, I was supposed to fly out that day. I had to go do a police report to go to the consulate to get a new one. And then I was flying out on Monday. It's Good Friday on Friday. And like the whole country shuts down on Good Friday. So like I had to do this in a day. I didn't have any money in my bank account. My buddy, they paid us in cash. And
was this for the audition or for the show for Man vs. Food?
So I already got the show. But This was this commercial that I did in Panama, and I'm in Panama. It was this German real estate company. It's a pretty funny commercial because it's like, don't be like these guys. It's like Wolf of Wall Street. We replicated Wolf of Wall Street in a 2-minute commercial. Cheaper to film it in Panama. It looks like Miami. I drove a Lamborghini, had a Cartier watch, wearing suits. We destroyed this office space. There was hundreds of extras. It was crackers, a helicopter. It was bananas, and it's such a beautiful country.
And it was in English? It was an English-speaking commercial?
Yeah, I imagine they dubbed it in German and English, but it's like we were speaking English in the commercial, and it's German real estate company. It's like at the end, like the doors kick in, and we're having this crazy party, champagne everywhere. There's like clothes are off. There's like literally 100 extras, and we're just going nuts. Everyone's soaking wet. They're shooting $100 bills out of this cannon and confetti, gold confetti, and then it's like record scratch. He's like, as if the cops are coming in, like the feds are coming in to end it all. And then it's like cuts to like a white screen. It's like, whoa, invest. It's like, basically, don't be American, it's like, whoa, invest. We kind of sold out a little bit, but it was hilarious, like I'm in a pool smoking a cigar with this like amazing looking woman next to me that I could never get, it's like, and like on the top of this rooftop, it was just, but like, I got caught there. I was almost not going to leave the country. I had a date with a first date with a girl that I wound up dating for a long time. That Saturday, so, and then Monday I was flying out to Milwaukee to shoot the first installment of Man vs. Food. And like, so like my life was so incredible. And so like, it could have ended, I could have if I didn't make it back, I was screwed basically. And so the only ticket left was like, I paid cash for it. I remember because they paid us in cash, like just a wad of money to do this commercial. And I flew first class, and I laid down the whole way, and I ate ice cream until. Never fly first class. If you're not always gonna fly first class, never fly first class, because once you go first class, you can't go back. It's tough, especially when you're a bigger guy. I'm like sitting next to other big guys and like coach. I'm like, get out of here, Anyway, it's obnoxious, but that's how I feel. But yeah, I made it home, thank God, and like I got to go to Milwaukee to do this first episode. And we were filming the intro to the show too, so we were in Chicago, and like we shot there too, and it was crazy because we had to film the opener. of the show, and we had to create like challenges. So we went to places that I didn't necessarily eat a challenge, but we created challenges in that first season to, we just didn't have, there was not enough time for me to eat all that food, but we made the time to create the opener, which is really, hard hitting. And,
okay. So are you saying that there wasn't always a challenge that kind of was interesting to you guys? So you had to create them at restaurants or for the opener?
For the opener, just to get the visual of like these giant steaks and things to give. Created that, because the show was off the air for 5 years. So it ended in 2012. The show didn't come back to 2017. Charles Nordlander, who's executive at the time at Food Network, was the one who basically resuscitated and said, it's time. It's time to either bring Adam back or Adam Richman or get a new host. And, so they wound up, I guess he didn't have any interest. And then so they cast for it. So you mentioned Andrew Zimmern, who was recently on the show. I met him. I met him in first class.
Yeah.
He had no idea who I was on our way to Minneapolis for him, I guess it was for the Super Bowl because he was having this huge party.
And he lived there.
Yeah, he lives there now. Yeah.
Yeah, he lives there. Yeah.
We were doing 2 episodes. We did Minneapolis, St. Paul. We did Minneapolis in the same week during Super Bowl. It was bananas. Okay. I did like
were you flying out of New York? Out of New York?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So he's in New York a lot.
Totally. And we met on the plane and I introduced myself and he's like, oh, you got to come to this party. Cause his executive, Charles Nordlander, was my executive. And then I was like, hey, I do Man vs. Food. He's like, oh, you got to come to the party. This is a funny story. So I go to the party and I was doing press all day because we had that day off. It was in between doing the 2 episodes of Man vs. Food. Shooting an episode of Man vs. Food is 3 days of filming. So each restaurant gets a day and we do 3 restaurants. The third day is the challenge day. And at the end of that hour, the last hour of that shooting is the challenge, whatever it be, hot or huge. So anyway, I had
on the third day or on every day?
On the third day, there's a challenge. So it's 3 restaurants.
Okay. Right.
Each episode, 1 restaurant is a challenge, and that's at the third day. And when that hour is over, when we're done, the cameras go down, lights go down, and then like the guys are in the car, like ready to go. Like it's like we're out, and it's like,
and you're heading to the emergency room.
Yeah, I'm dragging my leg to get into the car to go sleep on a hot rock somewhere, like a giant iguana to just digest, And so I go to this party with Charles, and like we did a bunch of press. I did one of Dan Patrick's show I got to do out there, which was hilarious.
I saw that one. That was a good interview.
Guy. Yeah, it was good. He's great.
Real good.
I'm a huge fan of his, and they brought me on the show several times, which is once I think we start doing some more episodes, I'll probably be back on there to see those guys and maybe wrestle Paulie again. Did you see the takedown? Did you see that part? Did you see me wrestle Paulie? It was in the Minneapolis. Oh yeah, look it up. It's pretty great.
All right.
Well, Dan was like, "Oh, so you wrestled in high school?" I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Are you gonna wrestle Paulie?" I was like, "You want me to wrestle Paulie?" And like my brother, a long time ago, he's like, "You don't slap box either," because he boxed and kickboxed, and he's like, you just don't do that. Either you fight or you don't fight. I was like, okay,
yeah.
And so Dan was like a coach to me, like I treated in that moment he was my coach, and I was like, "You want me to?" I was like, "Okay," and so I just picked him up and I slammed Paulie to the ground and. In a Hawaiian shirt, and I could feel the breath leave his body. I thought I killed him. Swear to God, I thought I killed him. But I'm like 250 pounds of just dead weight, bones, and mass on top of this guy. And he wanted to do it. He was like, "All right, let's go." And so we did it. It's worth looking it up. So I'll send it to you.
All right.
So we go to this party, me and Charles Nordlander, and it's Andrew Zimmern's party. He was opening up his restaurant. It was before he opened the restaurant, like Sweet Cricket. I forget, it was Asian fusion style restaurant that he was opening up. And so the place is packed. And I'm looking around like, oh my God, like all these people are from William Morris Endeavor. 75% of all people in food, hosts, chefs, what have you, a lot of them are with William Morris Endeavor. I'm not with William Morris Endeavor. I'm with CAA. So I look around and I'm like, holy crap. I had to say no to that group of people because I'll tell you the story. So I'm on the road filming Man vs. Food, and I'm with one agency, and my dad's like, yeah, there's a voicemail, a radio show keeps calling and leaving a voicemail at his house, my childhood home number, which is now defunct 842-8487. I had it since I was a kid. And And I go to his house. I get off the road. I go to his house. I hit the answer machine, and it's like, hey, this is Johnny from WME, which is William Morris Endeavor. So William Morris Endeavor was calling my dad's house, looking for me to set an appointment for me to go talk to them in their offices and see if I wanted them to be my agency. I was like, Dad, you realize? I was like, yeah, forget it. Like the second biggest, one of two of the biggest at the time agencies, it's like, holy crap. And CAA came in knocking at the same time. So I'm at this party with Charles Nordlander. I see Andrew Zimmer. I go say hello to him and like thank him. And then I'm looking around the room, like all these people are from William Morris Endeavor, or they're represented by it. And I also see, I still have never met to this day. I see Adam Richman, who was in the wings, and we still haven't met. So it was just, I was just like, wow, I'm in the lion's den right now. Seriously, I was like, I'm really uncomfortable. But then I just like put on a face and like, oh, hey, how's it going? Oh yeah, CAA is great.
It's not fatal. Walk in there like you own it.
It's not. And I did. I was like arm in arm with my executive. Like, this guy, he travels with Andrew, right? He's traveling me. Like I had to like put my defenses up a little bit, but it was fine. It was an incredible week of I love that town. If you've ever spent time there, I'm sure you, being from Chicago, you've been to Minneapolis, St. Paul. Yeah,
100%. It's great.
And I got to see the Super Bowl. Last minute, I got a ticket. I don't know how it happened. Someone said it was in the works, and I got to see the game too. So that was probably the greatest filming in its entirety. It was just an incredible week. I haven't been to a Super Bowl since, but just because of timing, like I would love to go back and do that again. But it was the first time I rooted for Philly ever, because I'm from New Jersey. We're Giants fans. So it was like, yeah, anyway, where were we?
Man, we were getting into we're 46 minutes in, and Man versus Food comes up. So
yes. Well, I've done other things, Yeah,
100%. But you've been on Bobby Flay also.
Yeah, I did. Like in the mix of things in the first through several seasons, they throw you into the mix because it's now Warner Discovery owns everything. Food Network.
Were you a judge?
Channel.
On there?
I was a guest host. I was a guest host. So they bring in three judges, and then they bring in two guest hosts.
Okay, yeah, you were one of the two guest hosts.
Yeah,
I love Man versus Food. I watched a gazillion episodes. I love Bobby Flay.
Yeah, Bobby's great.
Andrew Zimmer, and I've gotten into Robert Irvine a little bit.
He's intense. He's like a circus. Yeah. He's intense.
Hey, do you know Mark Tarbell?
Not personally.
Out of Arizona? No. Okay. Just met him in Arizona just a few weeks ago.
Did we film with Mark?
He said he's been out of it a little bit because he got a couple of kids he's raising, but he's getting ready to get back into it. But yeah.
I've met Mark. I don't know Mark personally. Yeah.
So I will. I'm interested to know do you have a culinary background? I know you've worked in restaurants, but do you have a chef background at all?
So very much like my acting pursuits, I started washing dishes at 14 because you could then, or no one really said anything in a small town. Child labor laws didn't exist in the small town of New Jersey. And that led me, like, being a dishwasher in any place, you really see the nuts and bolts of things. And because if you slow down, if you get backed up, you're screwed. Everything slows down. And like, I would marvel at because there were, I'm surprised there isn't a series that's about the pizza delivery and pizza place, because it's just hilarious. The characters that drove, that delivered pizza, the sub guys versus the pizza guys, they're all different characters. And like the pizza guy, like, he's probably a convict, and that's okay, but he had a rolled up sleeve with cigarettes in it. He reminded me of Uncle Headband, like Fu Manchu mustache, and like, he was tattoos. Like, I love this guy, this guy's badass. He's just embodied toughness, and he's like just making pizza flawlessly. And I was like enamored by the people in it. And like, I learned then, like, anytime you work in any restaurant scenario, there's always going to be food, right? Like, you're never going to go hungry, and you always have a little bit of money in your pocket. And so that was my entrance into culinary. And then I had a bit of a, I guess, behavioral problem in grammar school. So I went to this other school for a couple years.
I find that very hard to believe.
I think I even mentioned I was acting out before I started acting. And at that school, it was a lot of vocational stuff. And you kind of, it was a point system. So it was like, if you focused your energy, and this is kind of where my dad stepped in and my parents split up at the time, and the visualization, the focusing thing. And like, I was able to narrow my focus. And like, they were like, we had to see a therapist, and they're like, he has ADD. My dad's like, okay, you're not putting my kid on drugs. And so like, never was medicated for any of that stuff. And it's okay if you are. He just decided not to do that. I'm thankful that he didn't. He gave me other tools to work on. And so it did vocational culinary, basic stuff, like how not to burn your house down, how not to cut your hand off, that kind of stuff. And that progressed. So I had vocational culinary there. And that led me into kitchens, actually working in kitchens. And like, Bourdain's great at this. He's like, don't go to culinary school. He's like, go out and do that. Because I was just listening 4 hours of driving on the second half of my route to Medium Raw, which is a really great read and or listen. And he talks about that. He's like, you're going to be $40,000. Even though we went to CIA, and a lot of my friends with the CIA, Culinary Institute of America, which is like the best, next to French culinary, which is now, So I worked in kitchens, and I got opportunities to move up within kitchens. And then like, I was moving into New York City to pursue acting, and I realized like there's more money in the front of the house. And I was a bit of a character. Yeah. So I went to the front of the house, started bartending. Well, I would busboy, food runner, expediter, and then you eventually work your way up to bartending. Like you wait tables before you bartend typically. They're not going to stir you behind the bar. So I worked every area, and then even to management. I've never owned. So I didn't go to conventional culinary school. I learned in kitchens and got opportunities to do so. And so I'm not a chef. A chef leads kitchens. I mean, people call me that, but it's like, I'm not a chef. But well, you asked me if there's anything I wanted to talk about. There's a show that we're actually pitching, which is called Stage, which is essentially, I like to affectionately describe it as dirty jobs with Mike Rowe meets food. And it's working your way through each of these roles in the restaurant business that shine a light on how difficult, and how necessary these roles are. And be it the dishwasher at Le Bernardin to the hot dog person at Yankee Stadium, who's like, you have to stage. And staging is essentially a free internship that you would go work in a kitchen for nothing and learn skills from that chef, and then maybe get hired. And so for me, it's like, I didn't have an opportunity to go to culinary school, nor did I have an opportunity to, it was a financial thing, to go to conservatory for acting. I paid my way to train and do my thing, whether it be improv, sketch, stand up. I just went and did it, And,
look, man, that's a brilliant idea for a show. Thanks. I could see it. Like, I can see, like, because so when I was 12 and 13 years old, there's a lot of similarities in our lives. I was acting out as well. And so when I was 12 and 13 years old, I was working Friday and Saturday nights, 4 till 1 a.m. in a Mexican restaurant in Chicago. And I started, you'd go in there.
¿Por qué no?
And,
why not?
Yeah. And they would, so we'd spend the first hour, and we would be folding napkins into triangles and doing setups and things like that. And then they would bring out plates of enchiladas, and the entire staff would eat together.
Amazing.
And then it would open up around 5 o'clock, and it would you'd just be crushing till 11 or 12 o'clock at night. So I started as a busboy. Then I moved into the kitchen, and I did appetizers. So I was like, I don't know what the position would have been, but like, I would do the appetizers and stuff like that, and move plate, whatever they told me to do back there. And then I also ended up behind a bar wearing a little black vest at 13 years old, lighting people's cigarettes. So I don't know what that says, but
yeah, Chicago, right?
There's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff that happens in the back of the house that is, I mean, if you think Kitchen Confidential is bad, I mean, get outside the chef stuff, right? Into all the other support people. I mean, it's going to be interesting how far you go with that, because, sometimes if people see what happens in the kitchen, they might not eat there.
Right. And a lot of people haven't read Kitchen Confidential, and, I recommend you do, because it's not only is it a great read, it gives you a bird's eye view. It gives you a fly in the wall, hopefully not, because there are flies on those walls. An intro to kitchens and how things are run from Anthony's, perspective, which is, I read that. It was like, oh, okay. Like, anyone that has worked in restaurant business can relate to some degree. And he's just, he was and is to me just a kind of a superhero in the industry. And it was like a Bible, at one point I was like, okay, we're not alone,
Did he narrate Medium Raw himself? Was it his voice?
Yeah.
All right. I can't get enough. I cannot. I still to this day cannot get enough of that guy.
No, and he's relentless, but he's honest about it. I feel like about himself too, and he really opens up. He's like, they're like vignettes. Each chapter is like a deep dive into something specific. It's a real. I'm looking forward to the other half of it on my way home. I waited. I stopped listening to. I'm like a total true crime degenerate. Like all I do is listen to true crime stuff for whatever reason. I'm just really fascinated by human behavior, whether it be, this way I can see it coming. It's like, oh, that guy's, you should watch out for that person. But it's worth a read or listen. And to hear him speak it, it's like it resonates that much more instead of me thinking of his voice in my head when I read it. It's just nice to hear his voice, Culinary.
He's a poet.
He's a total poet. And he talks about his relationship with Food Network, and they let everybody go, Emeril and him, and then a new regime came in, and that was the best thing that could ever happen to him, because then he became the journalist I think that he was always meant to be, because of that, because he went to other platforms, and so, and it's funny because he was on Travel Channel first, as I remember, and so were we with Man vs. Food the first 2 seasons, and it was like the Wild West. I could say anything, which was amazing. A lot of that stuff. I grew up watching Warner Brothers cartoons. Funny enough, Warner Brothers now owns Warner and Discovery, and just the subtleties of things, the innuendo, and letting things people say the craziest things, and working off of that. I love my job for many reasons. I don't like the eating part, at least the humongous and the hot stuff, but everything else is pretty amazing. So it's anyway, it's a good read. What was I gonna say?
I'll tell you what.
Real quick, the stage thing, it's not picked up yet, so we're still pitching it. So if you know anybody or a network that really wants to see me, very much like Casey and Man vs. Food, lummox his way through every position in the restaurant business, over and over again, and with hopefully with as much humor as Mike Rowe does on Dirty Jobs, because I really see it like that, and I love Mike Rowe for what he does. He's just brilliant at that, and showcasing what people do as far as hard work or the dirty jobs that people don't want to think about or do. It's like there's this other show that we had this idea for, and it was American Trade, which is very much of the same thing. It's the things that are still made in this country and just made here, by people that live here, no matter where they're from. Right. We were all immigrants at one point, so it was such a beautiful foray into that world. But anyway, stage, if you know anybody, let me know.
So is your vision to have the truth cam and the cameras behind the camera? Because the brilliant thing about Dirty Jobs was the fact that they had somebody that was always rolling, and if he wanted to do the camera take, he could always. They were filming it, but then he always had the camera he could turn to and just say the most ridiculous thing.
Yeah, I feel like there's things missed. Some of the things I've said in situations on Man vs. Food are ridiculous, and just because of the person I'm talking to, not just because of me. Like I said, things channel through us. It's in the moment, and it's like, man, that didn't make because it's only 22 minutes, so there's only so much they can put in, and they still have to make a show. So, yes, definitely, and I hope it's on some sort of streamer that we could say whatever we want, really, to really show and tell, not just show, and I think that therein lies the brilliance, to dig deep into that stuff and really get dirty, because it's a dirty job, all of it, the restaurant business, it's like,
it is.
But I wouldn't change any of it, some of my closest people in the world are restaurant folk from, top to bottom, all over the place. So,
well, I, for one, appreciate Man vs. Food. You're incredible on the show. I watch it all the time and appreciate what you do there. Last question for you today, Casey. If you had one sentence to make an impact to speak into somebody's life based on your experience, what would that be?
I have it written at my desk, and it says focus on the work. And it's that can mean
focus on the work.
Because oftentimes we get like caught up, and we've talked about this in this past hour plus or however long we've been talking, but it's when, if you just focus on the work, I really feel everything else will be there, whatever that work is, and just get out of your head and physically take action, take the action to do the work, and trust in that and breathe through it, so focus on the work. That's something I tell myself every day.
Casey, this has been awesome. Thanks for being on.
Thank you. I appreciate you. And let's do this again.
Yeah, 100%. Right. Casey Webb with Jeff Dudan, and we have been on the Homefront. Thanks for listening.